Hey folks, welcome back to Facebook. This is another episode of Going Wild. I just have a little thing I wanted to introduce some people to, and I'm going to try to have a few broadcasts that will introduce you to the concept of the Austrian school of economics. A little bit. An Austrian school of economics began in 1871 with Karl Menger. Karl Menger was a professor of at the University of Vienna, and he published a book called The Principles of Economics. And this work helped revolutionize economic thought by demonstrating the process of the goods we are determined by the valuations that people have on them. For instance, you and I might think of, the value of an apple. You may not care for apples that much, so it doesn't have as much value to you because you don't like the taste. Maybe this particular apple is a bit tart for your taste. You like a sweeter apple. In Menger's mind, economics had a lot more to do with human thought and human processes than it did just in pure numbers. And this is what is kind of the basis of the changes, the essence of the economic thought processes. If you use this Austrian thought of value and individual values to products and services, kind of takes away the idea of socialism and communist economic models based on need. This is a value. This is more of a psychological look at how economy works, and it's a healthier look at how economy works because it also gives us a little bit better insight and understanding as to fluctuations of stock markets, life cycles of stores, brands, and things like that. It gives us a better and broader understanding of our world of economy, and in my mind. Now, there are a lot of people that would disagree. Or they would say it's a totally different study or idea of what is economy as opposed to what we determine that in Menger's mind. Let me adjust this a little bit. I keep forgetting that I have my new computer system here is a touch screen. So if I get rid of a little bit of a piece of schmutz, as they say on the screen, I am going to adjust the whole thing that comes out here. Now, Menger also pioneered a way to think about the economic, and one that insists on the realism of theory. Austrian economic thought begins with the basic truths of nature and man in the world, and how we process, how we do in the world. It tries to take away man as machine for understanding. The fundamental truth upon the economic theory, or all economic theory, rests with the fact of human action. When we're talking about human action, we're talking about the going ahead and trading, obtaining. I need, I desire, how am I going to get? With an action, a person aims to attain an end by employing a means. By reflecting on our own experience of acting, we can probably understand more of what I'm talking about. Just even me trying to buy this new laptop computer, I did a lot of research, compare and contrast, even looked at using or buying used machines. I looked at my own personal economic restraints and what I had available. Tried to barter trade services with people that may already have a machine that weren't utilizing them. But in this way, we comprehend the action of the terms, the meaning of value, of cost, success, failure, scarcity, choice, preference, foresight, and so on. From the meaning of human action, all economic theory can be derived. Does that make any sense to you? I hope it does. I know this is kind of a esoteric way of introducing this new economic thought, but we're going to be, as we go on, we're going to be doing a kind of a compare and contrast between the way that those of us who have embraced Austrian economics are kind of battling with those that have gone with the basic traditional economics and the people that have adopted the Keynesian motivations and theories, to kind of skip to the back of the book. When we're talking to the Keynesians, our feeling is that you can't control or manipulate an economy by manipulating the currency, the availability of currency, because it gives you false values. That's why you hear a lot of the libertarians screaming "end the Fed" and things like that. A lot of people are real excited about the cryptocurrencies and things like that. And we'll get on with that a little bit in the future too. But I'm going to introduce you to the way that they test and develop the theories in Austrian economics. This method of developing structures for a fundamental truth of human action in this economic theory is called praxeology, spelled Praxeology. It's the logic of action. The cohesiveness of economics is a body of non-quantitative propositions justified by logical proof. We'll give examples about that later on, but I want you to really kind of bring that word praxeology into your lexicon, into your everyday vocabulary of words that can be used. Excuse me a second. I don't have a cough button. By starting with the true positions about human action and reasoning, one can derive, I guess, complex models of how things probably will work, giving more of a predictive outcome as to how things will happen. In contrast, most other economists try to directly model complex phenomena like economic expansion or the business cycle using mathematics and formulae. Such a method requires unrealistic assumptions in our mind and conceives of economics as a body of quantitative positions justified by empirical testing. And our idea is you can't empirically test things that are done by human emotion. And a lot of the things that we do in economy is driven by human emotion, by fear, by elation, celebration. And we're in the Christmas spirit right now. And people are going out and buying and buying. And some people are even buying beyond their means because they kind of have this idea of Christmas magic. We'll be able to pay for it somehow because Santa Claus and the spirit of the season is going to help us through it. That is something that cannot really adequately be explained in the by empirical, simply by empirical testing of mathematical models, because it wouldn't tend to make sense, except that they're going to show a correlation between the amount of money spent on advertising with return on investment during that same period. And again, not an exact science, because I worked in marketing for many years in the automotive field, and it was always really difficult to justify and read ROI on the things we did, because we didn't know what was going to be the things that would make people excited. Was buying that coffee mug or getting the free coffee mug with the purchase the thing that was going to be getting people to buy more spark plugs? We just never knew what that one little thing would be. The radio, what was the gimmick that would be tickets to some event. We just never really could tell, but they always had to have a minimum ROI to justify the expense that would go through. And unfortunately, that's where my first lessons of how liars figure and figures lie. Because when things didn't work out the way that they were supposed to work out, then we had to come up with creative ways to fudge the numbers. Add in the sales of like or as items. You're trying to sell spark plugs, but you didn't quite get there, so you add in all of the wires that the ignition wires that went along with it, or tune-up kits, or something that would go along with the ignition system in order to pump up the numbers to drive up and justify the return on investment, so that you get that money back the following year to be able to advertise and do. Now, with us in business, even though we fudged it to justify, we would change our actions, because we knew that if we kept going down this road by doing the same thing over and over again, we would fail. So we would try to find that magic item, that magic thing, that magic service, whatever it was that would entice people to come in and get the stuff. Then we would try to tap into that. And if we found out that we tapped into it too often, people would get, find out it's not a deal, or I've already got one in that mug in my cupboard, so I'm not going to buy your deal this year. Then we'd have to change things up a little bit. However, in government, if something fails like that, you're a bureaucrat and you fudge, you don't have a lesson learned, and they keep repeating it until it deteriorates and it doesn't improve and things go bad. When you do this, it's kind of like the planned economy. You don't have any fallout. You don't have a fallback on that. Somebody mentioned that if a businessman makes a mistake, he ends up paying for it. If a bureaucrat makes a mistake, you end up paying for it. That's a huge difference, but it's also the way to look at your economy and how you view it. If you, the individual, are responsible for your economy, and your individual government is responsible for its economy, then you have a responsibility that comes down to you, and you have to justify it. When you have a Keynesian idea where it's expansive, flowing, you can, print more money, You can contract things. You can entice people by lowering value, increasing value. It doesn't quite work out that way. Another way of looking at it is that some people would just say the only thing that works every time is to lower the price. So I'm not going to buy coffee mugs. I'm going to, whatever the price of the coffee mug was going to be, that's what I'm going to reduce the price of the product, and that's going to be my deal. And yes, you will get an increase in sales that way. But it doesn't always work that way, because then all of a sudden the psychological mindset in the people's mind is that, okay, this is how much that is worth now. And then things kind of start to tank. People do it in real estate too. They artificially inflate or conflate properties in certain areas with no justification of why or whatnot, just because it's there. People suffer because of it. And if you have to unload a property, you unload a property. Then there are other underlying factors. When you're trying to unload a property and it becomes a great deal, it's not open all the time for the public. In theory it is, but a lot of times it's an insider in the real estate industry that has a developer, friend, cousin, husband, or something that snaps it up and does something with that property to enhance it for themselves. And the marketplace doesn't get to experience the benefit of what's going on. And again, this is something that goes on in economies all over the place and all over the world. Excuse me. So these are things to be aware of. And I hope you're getting an idea of what we're talking about. So praxeology is kind of the, it's how you do the modeling. That's the method in Austrian economics that we have. Karl Menger came up with the a book, Principles of Economics. It's the basis of Austrian economics in 1871. Later on, I'm going to kind of give you an idea of how it's more of a liberal arts than a science in the Austrian school. I'm going to introduce you to other players that go along with it, and we'll be talking about von Mises and his teachings, and hopefully you'll get more of an idea. I just wanted to give you just a little bit briefing. We'll call this episode 1 of Austrian economics and go along with that. If you enjoyed this, please make sure that you subscribe to our channel, hit like, and tell your friends. And we'll see if we can continue to do this. We hopefully will start a Patreon later on, so you can try to contribute if you like these, so we can develop more. And I just really enjoy reaching out to you and teaching you a little bit more about libertarian thought, which does have a major basis in economics. Have a great day. Take care, everyone.